Welcome to the Zone Coverage Football Show, your pre-game build-up to Pigskin Sundays. Catch the show live on the TuneIn and Speaker apps, or listen back in its podcast form via iTunes and Stitcher. Here's your host, live from Tees Towers, Mark Tees.
The show is now sponsored by DynastySportsEmpire.com, your number one resource for all your Dynasty sports needs. Whether it's MMA, baseball, basketball, NHL, DynastySportsEmpire.com has you covered. So head over to DynastySportsEmpire.com and sign up today. Welcome along. It is Sunday, the 12th of July. Today's show, big packed show. Fantastic news regarding Spurs and the NFL. We have it for 10 more years. Yes, the phone lines are open. 07444 048 266. Or Skype, T. Smith coming up. Yeah, there we have it. Had to play the full intro this week. You got away with it last week. There's a full-on mosh pit live from Tees Towers. The chat room's already full. We'll get to how you listen to that in a moment. Fingers crossed you're joining me live via the TuneIn and Spreaker apps. Sign up for those. They are free, of course. You can find them on your ISO device or your Android device. Just simply search for Zone Coverage Football Show. If you do listen via the TuneIn app. It comes with a funky little chat room. We've got the regulars in there, so good afternoon to Terry, John and Robert. We did have a few new guys in there yesterday, so we've picked up some new followers as well on Twitter. So the guys in the chat room, if you could retweet out that you're listening to the show, come join the chat room. That would be very, very much appreciated. So if you can't listen via the Spreaker and the TuneIn apps, you can always listen back in the form of a podcast. And when doing this, iTunes is probably your best port of call, in fairness. Stitcher as well, and we do have SoundCloud. And if you are inclined, I actually have a YouTube channel, which is just madness. So if you want to listen to the show via YouTube, you can do. The show sort of converts into it's just a blank video, basically, with my rambling nonsense. So that is that. You want to connect with me via social media, feel free to do so. We have a Facebook page, again, just search Zone Coverage Football Show on Facebook. We are also on Google+. And keep those tweets coming into the show today. That is at Zone Coverage FS. Right, a busy show today. I am expecting a couple of phone calls as well, so this should have plenty of content. So we may roll hour and a half. Who knows? Who cares? We're just here talking pigskin. We are 9 Sundays away. So one thing, though, before we jump into the show, you guys hear it now in the credits. The show sponsored by the Dynasty Sports Empire. Mentioned these guys last week, the undrafted free agents, the UDFA podcast on Twitter. Find that on iTunes and Stitcher. Guys, give me a shout out on their show last week. So they're currently going through the reviews, the review in each division at the moment. I believe it was the NFC East and the AFC East they did last week. So definitely go check that out. So 2 guys from Tennessee, just having some good fun and just talking pigskin. So highly recommended. I'm not just saying that because it's part of what my sponsor and that, but it is a really good show. So please check that out. Right then, What is on today's show, the nitty-gritty? Well, we had that news, didn't we? As I did say, the phone line's open, 07444 048 266. If you want to text me, feel free to do so on that number, or Skype T. Smister. Tottenham and the NFL have announced a 10-year deal. So I did a bit of research into this over the course of the last few days. I got round to basically blagging. I phoned Spurs, I phoned NFL UK, looking for someone to comment. Led to very interesting conversations, to say the least. Like, who's this? It's like, oh, it's Mark Tees from Zone Coverage Football Show. Cue a very long pause, and then, who's this again? So after we got over that awkward hurdle, no one knows who I am. We're still finding a feet in this industry, in fairness. They were good enough. The guys from Tottenham actually emailed me some links to some audio content with Spurs chairman David Levy. So I've got that to play in a moment. It's about an 8-minute sort of audio clip of what's going to happen with the NFL and the crowd, the stadium and all that. I also got some, they sent me the press release. So I can tell you, my main concern when it was announced, like many of you, was if you've been to Spurs, I have drowning my sorrows watching Stoke on a pitiful night a few years ago, but we won't get into that. We do know the transport links in and out of Tottenham can be a little nightmarish, in fairness, so I've got some fantastic information regarding that, what they're doing, and sort of like my next concern was sort of like the space around the ground. How are fans going to mill about before the NFL games? And there's a lot going on. You can go to TottenhamHotspur.com, you can see the images on there. It looks amazing, plenty of green space. So after my initial rant and raves about it, I was very unsure, but having read through a few things and seeing what they're doing, I'm more and more intrigued by this. Less of my nonsense anyway. Just sit back. I'm going to drop in the chat room. So again, if you want to join in, head to Spreaker.com, search Zone Coverage Football Show. I'm going to drop in the chat room, have a chat with some of the guys in there. But while I do that, you sit back and listen to this fantastic piece of audio that Spurs sent me. So again, thank you to everyone at Spurs that have sorted this out for me. So just sit back and let me know what your thoughts are after this. At Zone Coverage FS on Twitter. Again, the phone lines will be open afterwards. 0744 048 266 T Smister. That's TEECE Mister on Skype.
On this momentous day for the club, we invited BBC radio presenter and Spurs fan Nihal to White Hart Lane to ask Daniel Levy the key questions about the new stadium.
Daniel, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule to tell us all about these exciting new plans that you have. Well, we can see what's going on behind us. Looking through the plans, one thing that's very clear is how important regeneration was and how ambitious you were. Can you talk us through some of those ideas?
Well, really, it goes back a number of years ago when we started entering into discussions with the council, and we said that there's no point building a fantastic stadium here unless we can somehow work together to improve the area. And we collaborated with them, and we've created a scheme that basically is a place. It's not just about the stadium. We want to create a leisure hub, and that's why the discussions with the NFL were so significant.
And let's talk about the NFL, because this is going to be something that's going to excite a lot of people globally. What have you got planned?
We've been discussing with them, and finally we entered into an agreement a few days ago. And the idea is that over a 10-year period they'll play a minimum number of games here, and we will work together with our training facilities as well. And we very much hope that, given time, that the NFL will become more popular in the UK. And
in no way, of course, undermining the fact that this is a football stadium, fully retractable ground.
It's the first of its kind in the world. It's bringing the two biggest sports together. It will be a global event.
And also, because I know the fans are going to be super excited about all the numbers, but some of these statistics are fantastic. I mean, tell me about the capacity of the stadium that you have planned.
We currently have planning permission for just over 56,000, and we're going to just over 61,000. We've created a single tier stand, which will be the largest in the UK. It will be over 17,000 people. That's important because we've been very conscious about the great atmosphere at White Hart Lane, and we've wanted to do our best to make sure we can continue that atmosphere at the new stadium.
Now, of course, we don't wish to talk about other grounds, but there is another ground in North London, and this is now going to be bigger than that ground, isn't it, Daniel? But a lot of Spurs fans are going to be very happy about that. Also, the largest screens of any ground in the UK, the largest club ground in London. Ambition just seeps from every pore of what you're planning here.
Well, we started off by deciding to build what we think is one of the best training facilities in the world, and that took 7 years. And this project we originally started in 2002 when we started acquiring various parcels of land. And so, this is a project that is going to be here for generations. And we wanted to do something that was different and special.
And you've stated as well that you want the ground and the area around it to be available for fans and the people of Tottenham 365 days a year.
The stadium sits at the heart of a major project which is going to involve significant increased housing, increased jobs. I mean, this really will change Tottenham over the next 20 years.
And the world's largest climbing wall, which was a left field fact that I saw.
Well, again, it comes back to we want to create a place that is not just about the stadium, it's about creating activity. We want it to be vibrant, we want people to be here 365 days a year. So we decided what could we link with the soccer, and obviously we've got the NFL, we're going to be building a health centre, and we wanted other leisure activities. So we've got a very large public realm that is in fact bigger than Trafalgar Square. So there'll be lots of activities on that public realm that will be conducted by our foundation.
Tell me, Daniel, with all the plans here, and now I've seen pictures of it, it's a beautiful stadium, and the surroundings look beautiful. What excites you most?
I think the fact that it's more than just a soccer stadium. I think the bringing of Premier League soccer games together with NFL is a totally unique experience. It's something that's never been done before anywhere in the world. And I think that's something for me that I put so much effort into trying to attract the NFL here. And I think it really will be something spectacular.
Now, anyone who's ever had any building work, the builders say, well, we'll be finished by this time, and then we all know we build in a contingency. August 2018. That's what we're setting ourselves, aren't we?
That is our target, and as you can see, construction's already started. But you're right, with any construction project, particularly something as complicated as this, there's always a risk of delay, but there is contingency in there, but it's a target.
In terms of how complicated it is, it's also going to be the most technologically advanced stadium in the world, isn't it?
Well, by nature, because it's new, it was always going to be advanced. We've put a lot of effort into making sure the spectators have a great experience in terms of the screens, and obviously Wi-Fi and all the various things that people now come to expect with a new stadium.
And Daniel, the fans are going to come here in their droves. There's going to be people from all over the world. What do you think this says about Tottenham Hotspur, the football club, and Tottenham, the area?
Well, clearly Tottenham Hotspur as a football club is already a global brand.
Of course.
We're followed all over the world. I think for Tottenham, the area, clearly it makes it more global. People associate Tottenham, the area, with Tottenham Hotspur, but I think as part of the regeneration plans here, that you will see major changes in this area, and I think obviously a lot of tourism. Brilliant.
Well, we look forward to it. Danny, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. It's really exciting for us. We've been playing games in the UK for 6-7 years now with great success. And we were looking for sort of what's the next phase of development. And together with Daniel, we've, I think, found a way to take massive advantage of the investment that's going on in Tottenham in the new stadium and create something truly unique and truly innovative, which is really important to us.
It's the first of its kind, isn't it?
It is. In fact, I'm not sure that there's a stadium in the world that has roll-in, roll-out field for two fields. Obviously Arizona, for example, in our league, you can roll the field out, but there isn't a second playing surface underneath. So this idea of being able to play soccer and then literally roll the field out and play NFL football, I think is truly unique. I like the audacity of the vision.
It's clearly ambitious.
It's hugely ambitious, and it's ambitious not just for a soccer club. It's ambitious for an area. So I'm really taken as much by the infrastructure, the transport changes, the housing regeneration, the educational infrastructure that's going to go on together with the stadium. So that for me, being part of that. From the NFL perspective is important.
We currently have planning permission for just over 56,000, and we're going to just over 61,000. We've created a single tier stand which will be the largest in the UK. It will be over 17,000 people. That's important because we've been very conscious about the great atmosphere at White Hart Lane, and we've wanted to do our best to make sure we can continue that atmosphere at the new stadium.
So there we have it. That was from, as I did say at the top of the show, Spurs.com. TottenhamHotspur.com, I do believe is the website. Guys were kind enough to send me over that information. So as we heard, the stadium could be expanded from 58 to 61,000 people. The transport links and stuff, they're going to be vastly improved. Apparently, the crowd management arrangements, according to the paperwork that I have in front of me, there's a sort of a pinch at the top of Tottenham High Road where the pavement is just 2 metres wide, and people have been walking in the bus lanes and so on and so on. That's going to be widened. There's going to be an enhanced public space. That's going to be the area similar in size to Trafalgar Square. It's going to be multi-use games area, high quality landscaping, cafes and stuff like that. And you're going to have the ability to walk in uninterrupted, I should say, all the way round the stadium. So also in regards to like the signage and stuff, the new stadium is going to be actively promoted as a public transport destination. They've upgraded the Victoria line tube wise as well, and they are delivering brand new, faster and higher capacity trains. The Victoria line will be the highest frequency railway in the UK, with trains running every 100 seconds each way before a midweek fixture, and all trains now run the full length of the line to Wolverhampton is that? I can't even read writing, by the way of Tottenham Hale. So there's also been improvements at the Seven Sisters station interchange there now, all while underway. There's a White Hart Lane train service as well that's coming. Network Rail, they're going to be introducing free tracking for the section through Tottenham Hale and Northumberland Park. So there's a lot going on in regards to all the issues regarding getting in and out of Tottenham. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And we do have a new listener in the chat room, Tom Jeffries. He Claire the Bear 85 on Twitter actually retweeted a link to the show. Tom said, "What's this show?" Give him a quick tweet. He's joined up, and this is it now. He's in the chat room after some help via Terry, Tom, John, and everyone else in the chat room. So welcome aboard, Tom. Hope you enjoyed the show. Said he's a newbie to the NFL. So the guys in the chat room will look after you thoroughly, Tom. So enjoy that. Welcome aboard, and I do appreciate you checking out the show. Again, Twitter-wise, going to have a quick check-in on Twitter, see what's going on in the world. If I can just upload where my notifications are at the moment. Yeah, Will Davies always says the famous bit of an issue with the volume, so apologies my end. That is me, fat fingers pressing the wrong button, so fingers crossed that sorts itself up. He says, "Afternoon, Mark, great show last week." Yes, if you'd missed out on that last week, we had a nice interview with Ray from Bolt Talk. Fantastic talk about the LA franchise and all that going on. So if you like Tom, you're a new listener, you want to go back and find out what's happening with the LA franchise, possible move with the San Diego Chargers, or if you're a Chargers fan, or just want a good listen, highly recommend Bolt Talk. I think you can find that again on iTunes, Stitcher, and everything like that. So do feel free to check that out. Right then, what do we have? Yeah, we talked about the Spurs thing. Excuse that random noise there. I think that was Skype loading up, so I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. So, yeah, in regards to Spurs, if you've got any sort of thoughts on that, feel free. You can text the show 07444 048 266. The texts are relatively quiet. I imagine you're watching tennis. Stop watching tennis, people. Get on the show. Right then, we're going to do some news in a moment. And I forgot to mention that I'm going to be talking about players within the NFC who I feel are under pressure going into the 2015 season. So I've picked a name from every single team. We're going to run through those after the news. Going to get into the news momentarily. I do believe, let's jump to the phone lines. Hello, Sean. Hello, Sean. Hang on. Hello?
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Sean. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
No, not a problem, sir. For those that don't know, Sean dropped me a message a few weeks ago, said he wanted to come on the show because you've got some interesting fantasy stats.
I have indeed, yeah. I think it's probably a good idea to give sort of anybody listening in some insight into who I am, so it's not just some random stuff plucked out. Yeah.
Yes, that'd be you're stealing my spotlight there. I should have done that. Very unprofessional of me. Apologies.
That's fine. Well, obviously we've spoke before, but basically I've been doing fantasy football since really the advent of the game. So back in the UK, we used to do it by post. And obviously, it's come a long way since then. And in the 90s, obviously, fantasy football's exploded onto the scene. I'm the sort of person who's listened to Armed Forces Network Radio 983 medium wave back in the day. So I've made all the mistakes. I've done all the classic errors that you do in fantasy football. I've used my heart rather than my head. And it's in the last 5 years when I've been compiling data and I've been involved in over 50 leagues. And this is 50 leagues of passionate people from all over the world. I only get involved in leagues where I know people really put their heart and soul into it. And that arms me with the sort of data that means I'm getting successes and I'm sharing those successes with people.
Wow, 50 leagues. I tried 5 last year, and my mistake was having the show finish at 5:30. Sometimes it'd run over to 20 to 6. I got no clue what was going on, and my bench was empty at times. I got players playing that were on a bye week. How do you keep on top of 50 leagues?
Well, to be honest with you, it requires a lot of discipline. But I love it so much that the most important thing is that you stay disciplined. I mean, I wouldn't recommend you do 50 leagues for anybody, but really what I would say is you start with 1 or 2 and then you see how much you can cope with. I've done it because I wanted to make sure what I'm going to say to people is valuable in terms of fantasy advice. And I'm starting to find some great success with it now, and I'm sharing that with other people, hoping to bring them into the game. Obviously, I love American football, but fantasy can be a great way of getting people into the sport.
Oh, definitely. It's one of the first sort of steps into it. It gets you familiar with the names, how good certain players are. Are you still there, Sean?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, I like saying, it just gets you familiar with some of the players' positions and what goes on in the game and stuff like that, doesn't it? It's a nice sort of gentle birth, because if you dive in straight at the deep end, you can be just overcome by rule after rule and what is going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I want to do is just share with you some basic things. I mean, most people, and I'll have to be careful to use terminology that people can understand, but most people will go into a fantasy draft with some sort of cheat sheet. And a cheat sheet for your listeners really is just, if you go on a website, they'll have a list of players in a particular order that they believe will score very well. And that's great. You know, you can get them in magazines, e-magazines. You can go onto a multitude of internet sites. And thankfully, there is so much information out there. At times it can be overwhelming, but what I'm going to advise people to do is slightly different. Have a cheat sheet, yes, but do this. Look at the effective draft position of multiple sites where players fall. So what that means is, say for example, this year, who is the consensus number 1 pick? Why is that? Why do so many sites pick that player? What is his predicted points? And start getting as many sites, if you're really interested in doing well, get as much data as you can. And what this will do for you is, once you understand their draft position, you can start doing some pretty interesting things. So let me explain something to your viewers listening in. So let me bring this all together. So if you take, for example, this year, Peyton Manning is predicted to get about 341 fantasy points. I've gained that information for about 12 sites. I've taken out any anomalies, so that's things like where somebody's predicted too many points more than anybody else, or too few more than anybody else.
So you sort of like worked like an average, would you say?
A mean average out. Yeah. And then obviously that's very accurate because I use my own data as well, and my own data confirms what the sites are telling me, that is about fair. Then you look at the next player down, it happens to be Drew Brees. And Manning, by the way, is expected to go about draft position 33. His effective draft position 33. Now, I mean, my favourite league is a 16-man league, which I'll come on to in a minute. A 16-man live league, actually, here, that was drafted live in the UK. But, so he's expected to fall 33. So in the 16-man live, Drew, that would be round 3, the beginning of round 3. Now, Drew Brees is expected to get 340 fantasy points, and he's going to go effective draft position 44. So in a 16-man live league, that's slightly later in the same round, but 1 point less. And then if we look at the next man up, Cam Newton, he's going to get 336 points, but he goes draft position 52. So logically, if I don't bother to get Manning, I can go in for Cam Newton later, particularly when I know my draft position, and I'm going to get pretty much the same fantasy points and still be able to load up my bench with better players.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Don't rush in at the deep end. You can get some quality players at other positions if need, because your quarterbacks the points difference is not going to affect you massively.
No, and what happens is people use these cheat sheets, and obviously on the cheat sheet, Manning will be higher than Breeze, Manning will obviously be higher than Newton, but the reality is, if the difference works out fairly, if the predictions are correct, and they're not bad, you can look through the sites, they're not too bad. Cam Newton's a clever pick because suddenly then I can get him later, I can get other players and load up my points in a unique way. And that's what I recommend most people actually do. Start looking at the cheat sheet as a guide, start looking at the players, start looking at the information and start being clever around the numbers and you'll actually get tremendous success. And then you take your heart out of it because we've all got biases. I mean, when I first started, of course, I've got the team I support. I've got players that I like, and those biases are dangerous things. And so what I really learned is forget, the fact that the player you want to pick is a divisional rival. Forget all that nonsense. Pick them because they're going to win you your fantasy league. And let's be honest, that's a lot of fun when you do well. But I'm going to give you some insight. I'm going to give you some players if that's okay, Mark. If you want.
Go for it. Yeah, I'm just going to say on about drafting with your heart. As a Jets fan, I employ the simple rule: never draft a Jets player. Because he's going to get you nowhere, and just pick up Gronk.
Well, I have the same problems being a Rams fan. We've not had many years of success since it's been nearly 15 years now. So it's a painful experience every year watching players get dropped or come in, and it's a nightmare, absolute nightmare.
It is brutal. Yeah, go for the players then. Who would you recommend?
We're going to start with some basic things. We've already talked about quarterbacks, but a little thing I want to just throw out to your readers, a little fact that doesn't seem to be being picked up by any experts I've read so far this year on quarterbacks. Drew Brees had a very bad 2014 in terms of his standards, and New Orleans Saints in general. It wasn't their best year or finest hour. But one thing that's been missed by experts this year is Drew Brees is going to play 12 games this year out of 16 in a dome, and he plays superbly in a dome. So his effective draft position, it should be a lot higher, and he's definitely going to be elite numbers this year.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was just taking a drink, man. You caught me completely off guard. You guys just joined in the chat room, Noel.
Oh, excellent.
Noel's in there, yeah.
He's the commissioner of our live 16-man draft. I was just going to
say, for those with the good memory, everyone will remember that when you last rung in, Sean, you said that you did the drafting live with Noel.
That's right. Yeah, he's our commissioner.
Commissioner, Noel is deep into fantasy leagues as well, isn't he?
He is indeed, and you can find the forum that Noel is heavily involved in. It's forum.thefanpub.com. Great site, great people. It's all about all sports, actually.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, the fan pub. Yeah, they're on Twitter as well, aren't they?
Well worth joining. And the other thing is we've gone up and running now an NFL Fan Pub YouTube site to share some of our fantasy experience and also answer any questions people have, a bit like your show. And I'll certainly be making sure that we link your show to our videos moving forward, which we've not done, and that's remiss of us. But I was going to say about Drew Brees. So there's an interesting fact for you there. 12 out of 16 games in a dome. We all know how well he plays in domes. Yeah. He should have a fantastic year. So that's one quarterback. But there is another to watch this year, right down the ranks that people won't be looking at too much. Teddy Bridgewater had a fabulous end to the year in Minnesota with Adrian Peterson coming back. He's only predicted to go about 142nd in most leagues with about 306 fantasy points. And we've just talked about people like Cam Newton getting 336.
Yeah.
There's Teddy Bridgewater, 142 picks, 306 fantasy points. What about the factor of Peterson coming back? I say that is a very decent player on the up in year two. And we all know how important it is to get that first year under your belt. And Teddy didn't disappoint. So I think he'll do very well this year in Minnesota.
And definitely with the addition of Peterson back, the opposition's going to stack the box, who's going to give Teddy the time to make his reads. Like you say, he could be a very good sleeper.
He's going to be a great runner out of the backfield. And last year, he got 200 yards out of the backfield. I probably think he'll double that and probably get 3 or 4 scores on his own. So I think a fabulous situation for him. But we're going to talk about some other positions now. I'm going to give you a couple of running backs to watch out for. These are technically what people would call tier 3 running backs. What that really means in terms of the audience listening in is they're not the obvious players that people are going to look at. And I don't want to give you obvious advice. So here's a name to watch out for this year is Detroit Lions backup running back Amir Abdullah. He's a fabulous pick. He's going about pick 70 in most drafts that I've seen so far this year. He's got to fight out Joique Bell But Amir Abdullah has so many really good bits of information coming off the training camp so far and various other things. I think he's a really good player that will break in after a few weeks. It's definitely one to keep your eye on, and particularly in the pre-season, I'll be very much looking forward to seeing what he can do. He really looks quite dangerous.
Yeah, plus you've got to factor in as well that Joikbal sort of struggled with fitness as well. He missed a few games last year. I do believe he missed OTAs, but he is sort of there, isn't he?
He is. Another running back to watch this year, and he's only got to beat out Devontae Freeman in Atlanta in a brilliant situation, is Tevin Coleman. I really like this guy. He is a bit boom or bust. If you look at his college numbers, the one thing to worry about is whenever you see a college player breaking off 50 and 60-yard runs, and he had 13 of those in his final college year, breaking 2,000 yards, that doesn't translate to NFL. You know, how many players other than the great Barry Sanders break off runs weekly over 50 yards? It doesn't happen very often. So you have to sort of take that out of the equation. But I think because of the work he does between the tackles, and because he's only got to beat out Devontae Freeman, I think Tevin Coleman, fantasy-wise, is a fabulous pickup quite late into a draft, to be honest. And I've got a couple of other bits of insight for you for wide receivers to finish off with, and one of them is really right out there as a real wild card pick. But here we go. This is a bench player, really. This is a player you can pick up very late in most fantasy drafts. Old Marvin Jones of Cincinnati Bengals. Now, last year, AJ Green got injured and Mohamed Sanu came in. Marvin Jones was also injured all of 2014, but people forget that back in 2013, in limited action, Marvin Jones got 712 yards and 10 touchdowns. I don't think it's a lot of a stretch to imagine him coming back this year, beating out Mohamed Sanu and being the number 2 there with AJ Green on the opposite side. And given the fact that Andy Dalton is under a lot of pressure, to me, this looks like a wonderfully clever late-round pick.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, that is a good call. Just going back to the backfield, you give us some fantastic sort of like sleepers there. What would your advice be if, like, say, your team's got a crowded backfield? For example, the Cowboys, no one really knows what's going on there. My Jets at the moment, you'd assume it's a mess. We don't know who's the 1, who's the 2, goal line situations and stuff like that. Would you avoid that or just draft what you know is a certain 3-down back?
It's really, this is where you have to put your head in the game. Anytime you have a crowded backfield, no matter how tempting, and Dallas is a great example, wonderful offensive line, but it's massively crowded. All the experts are going, well, it's fairly obvious. You pick Joseph Randle, he's got a 6.1 yard per carry average. But what they're not saying is, let's just rewind and think about that for a moment. He got that on limited action. He got that in under 50, just about 50 carries. It was after all the hard work of DeMarco Murray and the defenses were worn out. If Dallas were really that high on DeMarco Murray, on Joseph Randle, he would have been made the consensus number 1 running back straight away. He wasn't. They drafted in, of course, Darren McFadden. They already have Lance Dunbar there and a guy called Ryan Williams. My money tells me that to avoid the obvious, forget McFadden. I wouldn't trust him with a barge pole.
I'm with you on that one.
Always let me down before. I don't like Joseph Randle because everybody's talking about him. And if I wanted to take a stab in the dark, I would go for somebody like Lance Dunbar or Ryan Williams really late as a sneaky last pick, just because even if they don't work out, and you're going to learn very quickly, even if they don't, at least I took a gamble on something that could be high risk, high reward, and I've still got to free up some bench space at some point to get some waiver wire players in. Better to take a gamble on somebody like that than it is the more obvious situation. So I always try as much as I can. Dallas is a unique situation. The offensive line is just so tempting. I would take a stab at it, but I'd probably go with Lance Dunbar or Ryan Williams if I wanted to fill a player spot. Those would be the guys I'd target.
Nice. Next sort of question that I've got really revolves around the tight ends. We all know like Gronk, Jimmy Graham and stuff. Greg Olsen, Panthers. He's had a couple of really good years. He's sort of trending upwards. He's becoming more and more of a household name. It's a player that I love.
Yep.
In fairness. Where would you sort of see him falling? What sort of expectations do you have in regards to the situation there?
Well, thanks for asking that, because that's a great question. Yeah, he's a tier 2 tight end. This year, it's very simple, really. Gronkowski, in my estimation, and most fantasy experts' estimation, if he stays healthy, and that is the question mark, will do what he did last year, and that's dominate the tight end position. You can look at him almost as wide receiver 1 numbers, Gronk. So he'll get about 190 fantasy points. The next nearest tight ends are people like Greg Olsen, and Greg Olsen will only get somewhere in the range of about 130. So that gives you some idea of the gap between tier 1 and tier 2. It is unprecedented, and Gronk is out on his own. And let's not lose sight of the fact that Greg Olsen, 135, 136 fantasy points, is very nice, but there's so little gap between Tier 2 and Tier 3, and there is an absolute mountain of tight ends underneath that quite frankly, the only good thing about Greg Olsen that I do like is he's consistent. Every single year, Greg Olsen will give you 800 or so to 900 yards and round about 5 to 7 touchdowns every single year. And I like the connection he has with Cam Newton. I think he's fabulous. I thought Cam Newton had made some good steps forward last year. So I think Greg Olsen will also make some strides forward this year. So I do have him a little higher than most experts, but he's afraid he's still Tier 2. But very, very, very solid. If I'm being honest, do I need to stretch up high in a fantasy draft to get Greg Olsen? Because he's going to go relatively quickly, even in a 16-man live draft. You know, I don't think I'll see him there much after round 6. So to be honest, no, there are so many other tight ends that are going to be on the board round about round 8, 9 or 10, which could be the difference of 1 fantasy point or less a week. Do I really need to stretch up? The answer is no.
That's a good point then. It's not worth reaching 1-2 points. You need a real difference maker. What would you class as a real difference maker to make a leap? Are you 5 to 8 points a week? Is that enough, or?
Yeah, if you want, in any position, I mean, you want someone that's going to be consistent, and that's the byword of every fantasy enthusiast out there. You need consistency, which was what made Gronk exceptional. If you look at Gronk's numbers, incredibly, and a lot of people don't realise this, if you match him up against Des Bryant, he's only 6 touchdowns short, even with all the fact he's had all those injuries over the last 4 years. Wow. It's remarkable, that's absolutely scary. Remarkable in touchdowns. So Gronk is amazing. So is Des Bryant, of course.
Yes.
But... you know, that's what you look for. So, I mean, in tight ends, really, I don't really worry too much about the position because unless you're getting the very best one, I tend to not worry about it. I'll pick a player deep in the tight ends or somebody who I like. You know, there are some good ones out there. I like Delaney Walker of the Tennessee Titans. I just think the upside is so good with the new quarterback coming in. He'll always be the outlet valve. He made great strides last year, had some wonderful fantasy production as a tight end. He's still technically Tier 3, Delaney Walker, but with a big upside. I think he could make a jump this year, so that's one I'd keep an eye on.
One that I'm sort of intrigued by, I'll be honest, I won't say it's one that I've done research on and point out there, but a few other sort of sites and magazines that I've read are sort of like hyping up John Brown, Cardinals.
Yeah, and with good reason. John Brown as a wide receiver is definitely going to make a big leap this year. I'm convinced, looking at the Arizona Cardinals team, what he was able to do over the last couple of years and the strides that he's made, yeah, I do see that. I think he's round about a 135 to 140 fantasy point producing wide receiver. So that's going to mean he's going to go quite late in most drafts. For a 16-man draft, you're looking around about round 7, round 8. But the upside is so big in that team with the return of Carson Palmer and a few other things. I can see big things for John Brown, plus his familiarity with the offense. So, yeah, I can see the logic behind that reasoning, and I think he's a good player that's going to break in this year, yes.
Awesome. Everyone's sort of on the same sort of wavelength there, then. I've
got one more wide receiver not talked about. I really want to share it with you because I'm a big fan of this and I recommend people do this a lot. Is normally I like looking at the preseason games. A lot of people switch off, but fantasy enthusiasts, really enthusiasts, watch every detail, every yard, every second of playing time. Well, now, we're not going to have the hindsight of that, obviously, at this point. But what we do have the hindsight of is, strangely, the Super Bowl. And we saw a player break in the Super Bowl and show what he was capable of with Seattle Seahawks. I think this is a guy to watch out for. Chris Matthews, free agent. No one's picking him up on any bench this year. His Super Bowl performance with limited playbook experience was exceptional. And the only reason he wasn't in the last quarter of the game, which would have been a big difference maker for Seattle, was he just didn't have the experience of the playbook. So watch out for Chris Matthews this year, particularly in pre-season, and see if he comes alive. They don't have a legitimate wide receiver one. He might be a really interesting guy to pick up right at the death of a draft.
Yeah, dragged from the local Foot Locker, I do believe, and burst onto the scene, the biggest scene of all. So if he's doing it on that sort of stage, definitely one to look forward to going forward. Yeah, indeed. So those are a few insights I wanted to share with you, and I hope that's been of any use. And if there are any other questions you have, Mark, you're more than welcome to ask me, and I'll happily throw them. You've covered every base there. You've gone above and beyond my expectations, in fairness, Sean. The only sort of last thing I've got on this sort of issue is where can people find you? Because there's a vast quantity of knowledge here that if people want to connect with you, your YouTube again, what was that?
Yeah, we've got the NFL Fan Pub YouTube site. You're more than welcome. It's only been up and running a few weeks, but we've already got 12 videos out there. We've got the forum.thefanpub.com website. That's been up and running over a year. That's where Commissioner Noel, and I know he's listening in, runs a number of his leagues. The great thing about Noel is, and this is the best league I've joined, that's where I'm hoping that we'll get to see a bit of your show as well at some point this year, is the live league takes place at the end of August over in Red Hill in Surrey. And it's a fabulous experience being able to bring together UK enthusiasts from all over the country. And we had an American chap come over as well, all the way from obviously the USA. Quite remarkable. And the experience of getting people together and drafting live is no better feeling than that.
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to try and figure out. If I can't make my way down there, some sort of live link or a live video or just some audio from it that I can put out there. I reckon that'd be really good fun.
I'm sure we can phone in on the day and give you an update of how it's gone and what sort of things have happened. But I think it'd be really interesting for the show going forward. Obviously a fantasy element would be good. I know you've talked about it in the last show last week, but it'd be really good to get you involved some way, or by hook or by crook, into some, even if you're running your own, just to see how people do. And I'm quite happy, to be perfectly honest with you, to lock horns with anybody. And I think it's a great scalp. My scalp is a good one to get. So
the gauntlet's been thrown down. Then, if you want to take on Sean, get over to the forum.fanpub then.
And I think it's a great site to come and lock horns with us. We're happy to take on all comers, even the Americans, and we've had a lot of success against them. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens this year. And if there's anything else you need for your show, Mark, you're more than happy to ask, and I'll be quite happy to come back again.
Fantastic. Noel's just popped in the chat room, actually. Said he's posted some videos over on NFL UK forum and stuff as well. So if you want to check those out, just check out the chat room on Spreaker.com. Sean, I can't thank you enough. Really, really appreciate the insight, the time, and the overall interest in the show. It is much appreciated.
No problem at all. Thank you, Mark, for having us, and good luck with the rest of the show, and I'll see you again another time.
Anytime. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to call in, and I'll drop you a couple of messages once I'm done here.
Okay, thanks again for your time.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Sean. Appreciate it, mate. Ciao, buddy. There we have it there. Sean randomly dropped me a message via Skype the other week, said he got some interesting facts in regards to the fantasy sort of look of things, and he did not disappoint there. He did not disappoint, so I really, really appreciate that, Sean. Thanks for joining in. And Noel, how are you, Noel? I haven't seen you for a while, so I hope things are well with you, buddy. Right then, let's get into a little bit of news now. Again, if you want to sort of any reactions in regards to the Spurs NFL news, Twitter is probably your best place at the moment. At Zone Coverage FS. Phone lines are open 07444 266, or you can Skype in just like Sean did. That is T-Smister, T-E-E-C-E Mister. Plenty of chat going on in the chat room there. Tom's getting schooled by the regulars in there, so they're giving him some fantastic insight. So much appreciated there, and apologies that I've not jumped in on the chat room as much as I could this past week. Right then, let's get to some... I can't find my buttons, I'm all over the place today. Let's get to some NFL news. NFL news! Yeah, them sound effects are a little loud today. Anyway, we had some crazy, bizarre news this past week. Giants defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul, he injured his hands in some form of firework accident during the 4th of July weekend. It's then since come out that on the back of those injuries, he's had his right index finger amputated, which must be an absolutely mind-boggling sort of thing. Apparently, he's made that decision himself. From what I've been reading and what I've heard, this speeds up the process. It saves having numerous surgeries, one after the other, skin grafts, trying to save the finger that can take months, whereas if you have it amputated, the healing process is a hell of a lot quicker. It's going to be very interesting to see how he bounces back from this. When will he be back? What sort of effect does this have on the Giants as a team going forward? He was due to be franchise tagged. He's still not signed that tag at the moment. There's also other reports that the Giants had a $60 million offer on the table. They've now shelved that. Add to this that these medical reports were leaked on Twitter. I think it was via ESPN. It is a really, really messy situation. I just hope that Jason Pierre-Paul just comes back. Fantastic player. I wish him a healthy and safe recovery. And another incident as well, fireworks. If there's ever been an advert for messing about with fireworks, last weekend was one. Tampa Bay Bucks cornerback as well, CJ Wilson, he lost 2 fingers in a firework accident as well. Unlike Pierre-Paul, he's not a big star name and he's on the fringe of the Bucks roster. 2 fingers, cornerback. His career is hanging by a thread. I have to say it is really hanging by a thread. So CJ Wilson, again, I echo my thoughts and well wishes towards you. I hope you make a full recovery. And the big thing is, what are you doing messing about with fireworks? It's that time of the year now, isn't it, where just the GMs, coaches are all sleeping. They're not even sleeping, are they? One eye open. It's supposed to be their time, get away with the family, and everyone's just running riot. It's absolute berserk. And just dropping back into the chat room, my good old teammate Ant popped into the chat room, says afternoon. So, the old man says hi. Afternoon to all. Appreciate the message as always, Ant. And you've missed the first bit of the show. Go back to iTunes, catch up on there, mate. You've missed a good conversation in regards to the NFL news and Tottenham Hotspur. On next then to the supplemental draft. That went down on Thursday. And the Rams, they selected offensive tackle Isaiah Battle. That was in the 5th round of the supplemental draft. That happened on Thursday. For the reports I've seen, he's not going to be ready this year. He needs a lot of work doing, but that was the big news from the supplemental draft. Some sad news we had this week. We've had this last couple of weeks now where former greats have unfortunately been passing away. But Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler, who won Super Bowl 11, died at the age of 69. The Raiders confirmed this tragic news on Thursday. He died of colon cancer. So thoughts and prayers there with the Stabler family. It's some sad news, and Raiders legend there will be severely missed by his family, friends, and of course fans as well. Baltimore Ravens, they went crazy this week by signing a punter to a long-term deal. Yeah, Sam Koch verbally agreed to a 5-year contract extension. This deal is worth $16.25 million in new money with a $4 million signing bonus. Not bad work, is it, that? Punting a ball, rarely getting hit, $4 million in the bank. Where'd you sign up for that? I'm well down for that. The news that dropped down, I think it was either late Friday or Saturday. Arbitrator Harold Henderson has upheld Greg Hardy's suspension for conduct detrimental to the league. However, his 10-game ban has now been reduced to a 4-game ban. This was announced on Friday. Obviously, he was suspended in April for his role in a 2014 domestic violence incident. Of course, as you'll remember, Hardy argued that the ban was unjust due to the fact that what had gone on sort of happened after the Ray Rice incident. No, he happened before the Ray Rice incidents, and these new longer suspensions were sort of rolled out and stuff. So he's gone from a 10-game suspension down to a 4-game suspension. Cue the speculation and utter madness as to what's going to happen with Tom Brady. Will he get reduced to 2, 3, 1, none? Whatever it gets reduced to, there's going to be some bitching on Twitter, basically. Talking of Twitter, at Zone Coverage FS, get these tweets into the show and sort of comment on this Spurs news, the NFL news and all that. I did give out plenty of details to regards as what's happening with the updated transport and so on and so on. Right then, the chat room is very, very busy today, so really, really appreciate everyone that's in the chat room at the moment. Seems to be growing week after week after week. And again, the forum.fanpub was the big sort of nugget that Sean dropped today. If you want any sort of fantasy advice, highly recommended. Sean had some fantastic insight there. That was it for your news. In fairness, there's not a lot going on. The sort of, it's silly season, isn't it? The sort of news that you get is either someone doing ridiculous and all that, and it's a sad month, isn't it? I was talking on Twitter the other day. We just need football back. Give me back live pigskin, please. The sooner the better. Right then, I'm going to jump into a feature that I thought I'm going to have little content as we roll into the last few weeks of the dead season. So I thought, you know what, let's sort of have a look at teams and see what sort of players are under pressure in 2015. And when I mean like under pressure, they need to step up, perform, or maybe a higher regarded player has moved on to a different team, so they're now stepping in his place, or they're under fire from the fans and stuff. So I went through, I did the NFC basically, so I've gone through 16 teams there. I'm going to give you a name that I feel personally under pressure. If you feel I'm wrong, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at ZoneCoverageFS. Chat room, you can even drop me an email at ZoneCoverageFootballShow@mail.com. So am I right or wrong, or do you think there's someone else under pressure within this franchise that I'm going to talk about? Then just contact me and we'll go. Going to start off then, we'll head over to the NFC West. We're going to start off with the Seahawks. Centre, Lamar Jean-Pierre. Many people thought that Patrick Lewis would take over from Max Unger, who was traded and part of that Jimmy Graham deal. But Jean-Pierre got the reps with the ones during OTAs. He started 3 games last season. That is a vital spot for me, the Seahawks. Yes, they've got the new fancy weapon in the form of Jimmy Graham, but the centre, the communication between him and quarterback, it's a whole new thing. Max Unger is one of the better centres in the league, so Lamar Jean-Pierre has to step up in 2015 if the Seahawks want to get to the big dance for the third time on the bounce. Moving on then to the 49ers. It was easy to say Colin Kaepernick for me, and I didn't want to go down this route. And I went, and I feel that one of my favourite players over the course of what feels like forever now is tight end Vernon Davis. He started off okay last year. In his defence and fairness, the 49ers did get away from him. He only ended up with 26 receptions. The last time he had that few was during his rookie season. That was 20 receptions. 245 yards, couple of TDs. He's 31 now, going into his 10th season. I just feel that he's just got to step up now. Vernon Davis, the final curtain has been drawn on his career. He's been a fantastic player. I just hope the 49ers sort of feature him a little more. They did get away from him last year. I understand that, but I feel that 2015, Vernon Davis is a player under pressure. I can't remember what his contract details were. I imagine it's a decent contract for Vernon Davis. So if he has another down season, or maybe the emergence of Vance McDonald, who was a second-round pick in 2013. He played in 8 games last year, decent blocker, got good hands as well. So just maybe the pressure is on for Vernon Davis going forward. We'll look on then into the Rams. This one again, the quarterback situation, too easy to say that's the spotlight. It is going to be the spotlight there. But I felt that safety Mark Barron, he come over from the Bucs. He was, of course, a first-round pick by the Bucs. He was traded to the Rams last year. Finds himself currently second on the depth chart behind... The depth chart? No one's getting killed. The depth chart, I should say, behind TJ McDonald and Rodney McLeod. Defensive coordinator Greg Williams found ways to utilise Barron. He had 3 sacks during his 9 games with the Rams, and that was the most he's ever had in the season, in fairness. So maybe 3rd and long, bring in Barron as the 3rd safety, nickel packages. He might be effective there, but again, this is a first-round pick. He's been traded away. I feel that the Rams safety, Mark Barron, is under pressure. Right, then moving on then, Cardinals. This again was a toughie. Again, the line was a bit sketchy last year. That affects the running play. That was too easy. But I feel the Cardinals need to set the tone. The team only had 35 sacks last year. The pass rush off the edge has been lacking somewhat. So defensive end Calais Campbell for me. I feel he needs to step up in 2015. He needs to set the tone for this team. He lacked consistency. Yes, he flashed. He had some really good games, but he was just not consistent enough for me. So Cardinals-wise, at defensive end, Calais Campbell, he really needs to step up going forward in 2015. Next up then, we'll move on into the NFC North. The Bears, I couldn't do the easy option here with Jay Cutler, in fairness. But I'm going to sort of along the same wavelength as I did with Vernon Davis, one of the older players, quite a big contract. Pressure's on. Jared Allen, he's moving now to outside linebacker from defensive end. Can you see Jared Allen dropping into coverage? He's 33 now, had a career low of 5.5 sacks last year. Vic Fangio, new system. going to be interesting to see how Jared Allen sort of makes the transition then to the 3-4 from the 4-3. So I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm intrigued to see how Jared Allen is going to get on. So I feel he's under pressure in 2015. And Sean mentioned it earlier on, a running back situation with the Detroit Lions. And I had that Joik Bell is under pressure in 2015 for me. Why, you ask? Last year, 860 yards, 7 TDs, 4.1 yards per rush. Damn good numbers, in fairness. But the biggest issue for Joik Bell was his health. He missed the off-season workout, and he is the only experienced back they have. They've drafted now Amir Abdullah, second-round pick, possibly going to be doing some returning as well. So if Joik Bell doesn't stay healthy, or the Lions also don't like to overwork the back. So if it's split and let's say Abdullah gets hot, Bell's still nursing 1 or 2 niggles and he's not quite right, Bell could be under pressure here because he had a fantastic year last year. It's just health let him down. So keep an eye on that one going forward. On then to the Green Bay Packers. One of the hardest rosters that I found going through I thought, who's got to step up? The Packers have a cracking line, cracking running game. We all know about a quarterback and wide receivers there. Tight end, maybe you could argue there, but I felt that a player that was under pressure was BJ Raji. Nose tackle, coming off an injury-plagued season, in addition to some poor play. The emphasis on Raji really is to short the Packers' run defence. Can he recapture that 2015 form? Any good play from Raji should help the poor inside linebacker group. They were 23rd in run D last year, 4.3 yards per carry, giving up 119.9 yards a game on average. So be interested to see, can BJ Raji recapture that 2010 form for the Packers and shore up that run game. Right then, Vikings. I couldn't shy away from him. Cordell Patterson, he's got to impress to get the Vikings to pick up his 5th-year option. That's enough, in fairness, for anyone to sort of get the finger out. He's due $7.6 million in 2016. Can you see the Vikings picking that up for him? For someone that's basically a damn good returner, hard for me to see him sticking around. So we will see what happens with Cordell Patterson there going forward. But yeah, he needs to step up. He could, with the return of Adrian Peterson, maybe play him in the slot there, see if he gets a bit more of an opportunity. If not, I can see the Vikings cutting ties with him, or they're going to have to restructure his contract. $7.6 million for a returner. No one's going to pay that sort of cash out, I'm afraid. On then now to the NFC South. We're going to start off here with the New Orleans Saints. One of my favourite players in 2013 was safety Kenny Vaccaro. I was very, very high on him going into 2014. But as we know, with Bad Santa, one good year defence, one bad year defence. For example, the Saints defence went from the 4th best to the 31st. Really, really bad. Vaccaro had an outstanding season, and he never backed up his rookie season for me. So I feel he's under pressure in 2015. He did have 62 tackles, a sack, forced fumble, and all that. But what bugged me about Vaccaro, there's this, they were playing the 3 safety look, weren't they, under Rob Ryan? And there was a breakdown in alignment. Apparently they were playing, what were they doing now? It was one read and react system, and they were getting caught in 2 minds. It was brutal. There was missed alignments. There was just assignment breaks down. It was a mess. And for me, Kenny Vaccaro, the one major criticism I'd got on him, too many tackles missed. He was often caught. He was going for the highlight reel hit. Too aggressive. But I do like Vaccaro. He impressed me 2013. 2014 was a letdown. I want to see him get back to basics. Can he hit and wrap? Kenny Vaccaro, safety for the Saints. Keep an eye out on him. I do hope he steps up. One of my favourite players for the Saints, if I'm honest. So I feel he's under pressure going into the 2015 season. Next up then is the good old Tampa Bay Bucks. Cornerback Altron Werner. Highly sought after free agent going into last season. Struggled for me early on, and I love his Tampa 2D. He did go on to have a solid season, but because of the results of the Bucks, the high free agency cash he was given, he became an easy target, in fairness. He needs to get back to his best. For me, he's under pressure because of that big contract. and the Bucks record. So remember his last season for the Titans? He was fantastic. He had 5 picks, 22 passes defended. So Altron Werner, he's a damn good player. I wouldn't have minded if the Jets had picked him up going into the free agency last year. So it's a bit of a down season. I'm intrigued to see if he can bounce back. On then to the Carolina Panthers. Before we get to the Panthers, I'm going to check in on the chat room. It's getting absolute berserk at the moment. There's a plenty of good chat there with Tom, Robert Knowles in there doing some fantastic stuff, some good promoting in there. So if you do get a chance, you do realise as well, even though the show's finished, if you go to the Spreaker website, you can still leave comments after the show, and that is an email. I forgot to turn my sounds off. So yeah, you can get to... once the show's done, still visit the episode on Spreaker.com. You can still make a comment. So if you're listening, you're like, what the hell's this Spreaker nonsense? Just search Zone Coverage Football Show. You'll see all the comments there. You can read through, and any of the links that any of the guys are posting to it. If you're like Tom, you're new to the sport, and you're like, what did that guy say? I can't remember now. The chat room's closed. Don't worry. All them comments stay there, so you can go back, revisit it, click on those links. And also, Noel, if you tweet any links over to me, if anyone's got any links that'll help anyone out and spreading the word and stuff, get them over to me at Zone Coverage FS. I am more than happy to retweet those for you. Right then, let's see what Twitter's happening on Twitter. Twitter's quiet, in fairness, at the moment, so we'll jump back into the Panthers. Tackle Michael O'Hare, however you pronounce it. It's basically The Blind Side. He feels that movie has it's wrecked him. He said it's just not good for him. He was a former first-round pick by the Ravens in 2009. He was a starting tackle when the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2012. He was cast aside then, following an awful, and I mean awful, 2013 season. He did secure a big money move to the Titans. I think it was a 4-year deal, $20 million. Titans were clever. They'd seen that he'd had a down season, and were like, we need some sort of clause that we can get out of this. And boom, they did. They had the clause in where after 1 year, for just $6 million, they could get rid. So Michael Orr then moved on to the Panthers. So that's where he's going to be now. He's going to be a starting tackle for the Panthers. He's been struggling in pass protection, run blocking. He's been sidelined with a toe injury as well, and that affected him last year after 11 games. But the Panthers are giving him a 2-year, $7 million contract. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Panthers and Michael Orr fare going forward. On then now to the Falcons. This one, the Falcons, what do you do here? The line's been awful along with the linebacker group. But with many moving on, I thought it was too early to hammer Jake Matthews, rookie last year. He did okay. I'll put that down as inexperience, give him another season. I feel the Falcons, for me, need to someone with experience to step up. Passing D that was ranked last, giving up 280 yards a game. Dan Quinn, along with new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, need to overhaul the group. With this in mind, the emphasis falls on a veteran, William Moore. Safety, he did miss some time last year with shoulder injuries, but Dan Quinn, he likes to lean on the cover 3 look, single high safety, and with Moore will need to set the tone. He's according to reports, he's dropped from 232 pounds down to 219 pounds. So him, alongside with Desmond Trufant, the corner, who I do really like, fantastic corner as Trufant, I expect a much improved Falcons pass defense. So keep an eye on veteran safety William Moore for the Falcons. If he stays healthy, or like I did say there with Desmond Trufant, hopefully that pass D for the Falcons will improve, and especially under Dan Quinn's system as well. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles. I would imagine the majority of you are going to have this one, but this is Eagles cornerback Byron Maxwell. In my notes here, I've said this one's easy, but it's more out of intrigue than anything else. To be honest, Maxwell impressed me last year. But let's put it this way. I've got a bum knee, but with Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas behind me, I'm sure I'd look okay. Nah, joking aside though. Byron Maxwell, he did get picked on. Everyone stayed away from Sherman, and they did go after Maxwell quite a lot. And he did step up to the plate. He did. However, it's going to be interesting this year. He's going to be asked to follow the number 1 wide receiver round. Can he stand up to the task? Or I've heard that Eagles fans are absolutely petrified that he could turn into the next Nandi Asamoah. Remember Nandi? how bad a signing was that? Big deal contract. I think he's retired now, hasn't he, Mandy? So that's going to be an interesting one going forward. Again, that is more out of intrigue because he did show flashes. He played well when teams went after him, but can he live up to that big contract? Right then, last couple we've got here before we round out today's show. We will go into the New York Giants. Interesting one here, especially with the Jason Pierre-Paul news. I've got a defensive end called Demontre Moore. He's featured mainly on special teams. Coaches have been reluctant to give him more opportunities because he struggled during a few of the practices. However, Steve Spagnuolo is back. We all know Steve Spagnuolo. The Giants had 2 Super Bowls under him. He's known for his aggressive, attack-minded approach. It'll be a far cry from the read and react system of Perry Fuel, who he's gone now. Giants got rid of him. So can Demontre Moore step up? Can he become a household name in 2015? That's maybe a bit harsh that I'm saying he's under pressure in 2015, but maybe more of a name to look out for. So if Demontre Moore bursts onto the scene, you heard it here first. Giants defensive end. Up next then comes the Washington Redskins, and I jotted down a tight that sort of intrigued me. He showed flashes over the course of a couple of years. That is Jordan Reed. Injury hit during his first 2 years with the team. He missed 7 games as a rookie. He had some sort of concussion issue. He struggled to bounce back from that. He missed 5 games last year. Needs to improve his blocking. However, he does help move the chains. 53 of his 95 career receptions have gone for first down. He has excellent hands. He's a good route runner. He runs routes crisply. However, for a guy his size, he struggles in the red zone. So can Jordan Reed bounce back in 2015 for the Redskins? He needs to work on his red zone. He's a big guy. What are you doing? Great hands. I just don't get how his struggles. Maybe he's a bit scared now. 2 years in. Was he missed? Quick bit of math. He's missed 12 games. So maybe at the back of his mind, he's not playing without sort of that freedom of the mind, sort of that mentality. He's maybe worried he's going to get hurt. Last then, but not least, rounding up our NFC preview of players under pressure in 2015 is the Dallas Cowboys. And again, this one maybe more of intrigue than the fact that I think he's a damn good player as linebacker Sean Lee. Did you know he's played in just 17 of the Cowboys' last 48 regular season games? Add to the fact that the Cowboys are also paying him around about $40 million. That's his contract. And that is a lot of cash for someone that is a part-time player. Which, it sounds harsh, but 17 out of 48 games is a part-time player. So it's a $40 million. We all know how the Cowboys don't handle the cap situation at the best of times. So for me, Sean Lee is under pressure in 2015. The Cowboys, I think, have recognised that Sean Lee's been injured over the course of his career, in fairness, and they're now moving him to weak side linebacker, which in turn, that's going to protect him from the second level blocks from the guards coming up and just absolutely flattening him. So will we see a bit more from Sean Lee in pass coverage? I can't remember his interception numbers, but they're damn good for a linebacker, in fairness. So Sean Lee, again, out of intrigue. A, can he stay healthy? B, can he justify that huge contract? And C, well, moving to weak side linebacker, help him stay healthy and basically justify my A and B points. So that is the roundup, basically. I hope you found that of interest. Some players that I thought were under pressure going into the 2015 season. I'm going to go through the AFC next week because I found that quite interesting, in fairness, for me personally, doing a little bit of research and digging up some numbers and sort of trying to sort of stray from the obvious sort of people that were under pressure. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. What are we on now? 20-5. I'm going to have a quick check-in on Twitter. Last minute or so before I wrap this up. I'm going to drop in the chat room as well and just say thank you to the guys in there. But yeah, it's been a little quiet on Twitter. So we did pick up Tom this week and Claire DeBear as well for retweeting some stuff. Just before we get into that, like I say, we will be back next week. Again, one of the hot irons I pulled out the fire. We should have a coach on talking some nuances of the game. And next week, aiming to sort that out, obviously, with the time difference tonight. It might be a pre-record, which that'll enable me to get into the chat room, in fairness. So any sort of questions or anything you want to hit me up with, if you agree, disagree with my selections from the NFC players under pressure in 2015, feel free, hit me up at Zone Coverage FS. Again, the Facebook page, Google Plus, basically anywhere and everywhere. All that's left to do is basically say thank you to everyone that's joined in the chat room today. It's been busy. We're picking up new faces week after week. I'm liking this. Let's get this thing growing. Pre-season is just round the corner. We are a few weeks away, 9 Sundays away from it. So let's say 9 Sundays. I was reading the chat room then. That's what. If you ever hear me distracted, it's because I'm either reading something, taking a drink like I was when Sean was talking to me, and I felt ever so bad there because I couldn't put my drink down quick enough when he paused. So if you do hear random pauses, remember it is a one-man show. I am trying my best. So Tom, I appreciate the kind words. He said he's enjoyed the show. First one he's caught in. Robert might not be with us next week. Podcast Buddy, podcast iTunes. Hit us up, get your Wi-Fi on the go. Again, appreciate everyone that's joined down in the chat room. Retweet the links. I will put them out to the show going forward. Any sort of questions, just fire away. I'm well up for the chat as we head in towards the season. Terry as well. Appreciate Terry, Tom, John. And John, it's been an absolute blast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Next week we'll run down through the suggestions. Fantasy football's been much in the air, so if anyone wants to get in touch in regards to that, obviously we'll get the @DunDF NFL crew back on as well. They'll be giving us our advice as we head in towards the season. I'm sure we'll hear from Tom from Huddle Magazine as well as we get closer and closer. That's it. I am done and dusted. I know I've got a chicken in the oven. I'm absolutely starving. I appreciate every single one. John McDonald's just come into the chat room. Just got in. John, iTunes buddy. I'll post the link in a minute. It'll be on Facebook. And to Noel as well. Again, like I said at the top of the show, if you've seen the links or you've heard me talking about the links within the chat room and that, if you go to Spreaker.com, just click on the episode. Even when it's done, you can read past all the comments, see all the links and stuff. Just click on them. Noel's at Blue Lion Man, if you've seen a lot of Noel's links in the chat room. At Blue Lion Man on Twitter. Again, if you've got links, send them over to me. I'm rambling. I'm going. It's been an absolute pleasure. Remember, folks, I'll see you next Sunday, 3:30 till around about 4:30, 5 o'clock. We will go the full 90 minutes once the season is back upon us. Until then, stay safe, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and remember, hustle, hit, and never quit.